Lake McConaughy in Nebraska has grown into one of the greatest smallmouth fisheries in the Midwest. We had a tournament there about a week ago, and this is a breakdown of exactly what went right, what went wrong, and what we did to get second place in that tournament. Check it out. All right, tournament breakdown this time is Lake McConaughy in Nebraska. We fished here with the silted water bass tournament trail. Really fun lake. This is the smallmouth destination in Nebraska right now. Tons and tons of 3 to 4 pound fish in this thing. So as you can see, this lake was dammed up. It's in the Nebraska sand hills. So the shoreline and the bottom of this lake is mostly sand. Okay, so 99% of this beach is sand. There's not a lot of rocks. There are areas where old trees have grown up in low water years and then the waters have come back up. But there are areas that do have some rocks, like here near the city of Lemoyne. There's some rocky areas. Down southeast near the dam. The dam obviously has rocks. And then these points here have rocks. The western part of this lake can have some flooded cover for some smallmouth. This time it did not. The water had dropped down too low, so there wasn't a lot of water up here. But the way the water level was sitting, most of these coves did not have water. So there was not a lot of cover. There wasn't really an opportunity to fish for largemouth on this thing. So I knew going into it was going to be mostly a smallmouth tournament. They did have, when we got there, the water was 60 degrees. Right when we were idling out, I noticed there was definitely an alewife spawn going on. There was alewives all over the place. So you kind of had an opportunity for smallmouth spawn and alewife spawn going on. So 60-degree water, pretty clear, 3 to 4 foot of visibility for Nebraska. I know that's not clear if you live in Wisconsin, but for us, that's pretty clear. But sand bottom lake, lots of smallmouth, kind of concentrated. Fish is kind of small for as big of a lake as this is. This thing stretches like, I think when it's full, it's like 20 miles long. So we're going to go on and check it out and see what our big plan was to fish this thing. So what I like to do when I fish, as you guys know, when I have a breakdown, I always like to start off with a topographic map. And as you can see here, Lake McConaughy doesn't really have a lot of contours. I mean, the shoreline is basically straight. Obviously, there's some curves to it, but it's mostly just, there's not these big, huge points that stick out in the water. It's basically like a big, huge bowl. Right down here, you can see it's a little steeper where these points are, where these rocky points are. And I know that smallmouth live here. I fished for smallmouth one other time in this lake. We used to fish all the time here for walleye. But I knew that smallmouth lived down here in the southeast end for sure. There's always tons of fish down here. And I basically went around and just looked to see if I could see anything else that might hold some smallmouth. The only other thing I could think of was up by Lemoyne, some of these rock areas up here, which I'll show you on the Google Earth. But other than that, I didn't feel too confident about anything else holding any smallmouth. I'm sure there's some little secret areas you could find if you really searched it out. But with it being mostly a sand bottom, I know smallmouth like transitions. So I knew we had to probably just break down these points here and catch some smallmouth and just see if we could do better than everyone else. Knowing that I was going to be fishing this area most likely, I went over here, and this point sticks out a long ways here. So I used it to kind of see when the shallowest water was. So what I was looking for, I knew smallmouth would be either spawn or post-spawn here, and I was looking for the shallowest time. So right there, August of 2006, very shallow. And what I wanted to do is I went around and I found where there was rocks that went far out, the farthest out compared to like the rest of these points. So this one has pretty flat rocks that stick out. This one, as you can see, is pretty flat. So it sticks out pretty far, but like this one drops right off. The rocks kind of just end. So I kind of went around all these points and I found where the rocks stuck out the farthest. Okay. There's another, let me see if I can find, there's a better picture than this. Believe, not that one. Yeah, 24, the most recent picture. So this actually does a really good job. So what I did, so like I said, I went around, found where these flat rocky points are, and I knew that basically these were going to be the spots where the smallmouth were. Like this one here is pretty steep. The rocks basically end. There's not a lot of rocks that stick out in the water, especially with the water level we were dealing with. Now, different time of year, or different year where the water's up higher, this is a totally different ball game. But I basically knew. Let me zoom out. I believe there's six. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 areas that we were going to check, plus maybe the dam as a backup. Okay, the dam as a backup. I don't love fishing dams. It seems like it's all the same thing, and I feel like you spend a lot of time there. There's definitely fish there, but to find them, you got to waste a lot of time. So I wanted to find some of the flattest points. So, and I thought there probably would be an alewife spawn. So I thought first thing in the morning we'd start back on one of these points that's a little more protected. I could throw like a walking bait, maybe get an alewife spawn fish, and start there, and then spend the rest of the day graphing and finding schools of fish offshore. So we launched right out of here, out of this boat ramp, and this is what I decided would be my starting spot because this is a point that sticks out quite a ways. It's a little bit protected. See, as you can see, that's like the water level we fish, and that's the water level that we were dealing with. So I said, hell, we'll start right here. It's not far from the ramp. Here we go. Let's do it. And this is what happened. All right, tournament day. We blast off. As I said, I idle out of here. Water 60 degrees. There's alewife spawning all along here. So I knew it was going to be either really tough or really awesome. So I think we drew boat number 7. There was like 14 boats. We blast off out of here, come around the curve. One other boat was over here, but he was on this side. So we started right down this side, cast it out on this point. There was bait everywhere on forward facing, and there was fish everywhere. But we're not really getting any bites. Worked my way back in here, and let me see if I can. Yeah, there we go. Can't really see it here, but worked my way back in here. This sticks out a little bit with some rocks. Didn't really get any bites here. Oh wait, let me see. Yeah, and then as we worked our way back here, this is a little gravelly bank with had some baseball-sized rock on it here. And I started casting. I was gonna originally cast the walking bait, but there wasn't really any topwater action going on at all. So I decided to stick with a swim bait. I had like a 3.8-inch Kitech on a half-ounce head, maybe even like a 3/8 ounce head. But started throwing that thing, working along the rocks, and there's a little shoal here with some gravel-sized rock. And I only came back here because I saw back in this cove there was some grass and stuff. It looked really kind of largemouthy, and I thought maybe there was a chance that we'd catch a nice largemouth back in here. But as we're working our way back here, threw a cast right up here on these rocks. Boom, got a hit. 3.5, or no, I think it was right at 3-pound smallmouth. First fish of the day. Felt really good to get that thing in the boat. So we caught a 3-pounder right there on a little alewife spawn stuff. Went back in here, threw a swim jig up in these reeds and tules, and just didn't get a bite. Looked really good. Just there wasn't anything in there. So I mean, there was life in there, but they just weren't biting. Worked back out here, fished some of these rocks on this side, and then this started to get to be really big boulders up here, and just didn't really feel fishy. So I said, you know what? Let's go graphing because the wind had picked up a little bit. We weren't really getting any bites, just the one fish. So we decided to go graphing. Came up here, graphed all along here. There was a bunch of fish right up in here, stacked up, and I don't know if they were smallmouth or not, but there's some guys fishing in there. So then I said, okay, let's blast off. We'll go to the west end of this thing and just work our way back. We stopped. Let's see this map. Get a better one. Good Lord. Okay. So let me think how we did this. Yeah. Oh, we went over here, graphed around this point here, and there's fish. Basically, I'm seeing fish in like 8 to 12 feet of water, bait and fish, everywhere we go, 8 to 12 feet of water. And my plan was just to graph everything and then make a decision after that. So we graphed this point, we graphed all along here, and we're seeing fish consistently in that 8 to 12 foot of water zone. Lots of bait, especially, not necessarily a lot of big fish. Seeing a lot of like marks that made me feel like there were some smaller fish in there and definitely some bait fish. But this area right here is a really good area. These rocks come off a long ways, and there was definitely fish here. We worked our way around here, and then we jumped over to these points. These I noticed were pretty steep, like I said before, so that I didn't really feel like the fish was any good here. And we worked our way back here. There was a boat in here, so we came in like this, brought the boat around. So the water was up over this right here. Brought the boat around and started trailing off like this. And I saw on my down scan two big bright dots next to rocks. And I noticed that the rocks were scattered and stuck out way out here. So you can't really see it too good. But as you can see, unlike most of the other points, the rocks stick clear out here on this point. Most of them, other points would just round like this, but this one had little rocks scattered out on this flat, and then there's also some stumps right here sticking up. And I immediately turned the boat around because it looked like the juice. I don't know what it is, but sometimes you just see it and you know it, and this thing looked like it had some fish. So I spot locked out here in like 15 foot of water, and we just started casting up here, dragging our baits back. So we're using a tube, little mini MaxScent tube on a Great Lakes finesse head. I believe that was like a 1/4 ounce. So that's what I had my son Caden throwing, and I was throwing a drop shot with a flatworm on it. Started out with a 1/4 ounce on that thing, and right away, maybe after like 10 casts, I caught like a 2.5 pounder. I'm just dragging it back here, and then the wind was blowing from the north, so Caden was on the back of the boat, and he was throwing over at those trees, and boom, I look over, and he's hooked up. He brings in like a 3.2. So I'm like, holy shit, this is awesome. So we just start casting. We end up catching an insane amount of fish over the amount of time. It wasn't like every other cast, but it was pretty consistent. And we literally just spot locked here, and then I would move back 10 feet, move back 10 feet, move back 10 feet, and just worked this whole flat over the time from freaking 7 in the morning until probably 1 p.m. We caught probably 25 smallmouth. We had, I believe, just over 15 pounds in the bag by the time we were done. But they were literally all right in this area. They were spawning in here, and they were just loading up one after the other. Boats went around us. Boats fished all these points, and we just were catching them right in here. It was just a honey hole. They were definitely spawning up here. They were using those trees, the rocks, transition, a little bit of everything mixed to make this one of the best spots on the lake that day. We were having troubles catching anything over like 3.2, 3.3 pounds. And I knew we probably needed to get closer to 17 pounds to win. So I decided to go looking. We graphed some more of these areas, and then we went and tried over. We tried over at this point here, but there's lots of guys fishing here. We didn't get any bites, so we went back, and this little point complex here I knew was pretty good. So we scanned around it, and there was a school of fish right off here on some rocks, and we tried fishing it, but it was super snaggy. I caught one smallmouth off it, and it was just a little too snaggy. You were spending more time breaking off than you were actually fishing. Probably could have tried some different baits, but I said screw it. We went back, and we approached this point again from a different area. Kind of went closer to the shore and cast it out, and we caught some more fish. We caught, I don't know, a couple more 3-pounders. Really good spot. So this thing was just reloading all day with fish because they were wanting to spawn in there. It was one of the few spots they could spawn on this lake. So ended up catching 15 pounds, 10 ounces out of this thing. Literally caught them all from basically right here to right here on this one little point, and basically caught all of our fish right there. So went in, weighed in, ended up getting second place. Charlie, congratulations to him, and I believe Jackson is his partner. They had 17 pounds. I'm sure they found a similar area that the fish were spawning in. But we just couldn't get any females. All of ours were males. They were peeing all over the boat. But if we could have caught 1 or 2 females, we could have been right up there with Charlie. But felt pretty good about the day. Caught 15-10. My son Caden caught our 3 biggest ones. So it's one of his best days of fishing he's ever had. Really proud of him. He has come a long way in his fishing career, fishing tournaments over the last couple of years. So went over there, weighed in, got second place, had a great day, one of the best days out there. But I know it seems simple, but one of the easiest days I've ever had finding smallmouth and catching them. All right, so what went right? So basically the main thing that went right is I stuck to my plan no matter what. So my first part of my plan was to go chase the alewife spawn a little bit, which we did. We caught 1 keeper doing that, which ended up staying in our live well. And then was to go graphing and to actually graph until we found something that we could not resist, and that's what we did. We graphed all these points until we found that spot that had the scattered rocks, and we just stuck to it. And a lot of guys fished this area after we left it. I saw some guys fish here, but a lot of them just went right through it. Even if they caught a fish, they just kept moving on. And the thing that we did different is we stayed right there and just kept painting that area, beating it up, and catching every fish in there. And that's what you have to do sometimes in these springtime smallmouth fisheries. They get into an area and you just got to kind of stick in there. And it's kind of hard to do as a fisherman just to stay in one spot. But that's what you had to do to catch them in this area. So we did it, and that's when we went right. Wasn't much else because it was a pretty simple day. There wasn't much to it. All right, what went wrong? Why didn't we catch any 4-pounders? I think so. One of the things that went wrong, we come out of here, my boat's still having issues getting on plane. I think I just need to change my jack plate, so that's something to work on. Other than that, to catch some bigger fish, we would have had to graph a little more for sure. Find some similar areas to this. We could have, after we had our 15 pounds, probably spent some more time graphing. But it was too easy to go back there and hope that a big one moved up. So could have found, I'm sure there was areas. I kind of looked around. I think right over here looked like a really good spot, actually. And I think there could have been some smallmouth out here. We did not check out this side of the point. And some of these areas right in here look like they have flat rock out a little bit further. So could have tried some of those. I think there was chances they held fish. That's about the only thing that went wrong. It was a really good day, like I said. But could have found some bigger fish. That's about the only thing that could have changed. All right, lessons learned. The biggest lesson I learned was that spawning smallmouth love flat areas with scattered rock. And anything like some stumps or something to make it a little bit different. So they love transitions. We've known that. We've talked about it here on the channel. But a lake like this that has a lot of steep rock and things, it's the same thing we always talk about. Something different amongst, so a lot of the same. So you have tons of rocks in this area, all the way from the dam, all the way over here. You have rocky points. Well, what is different? This little point is different. It's flat. It sticks out farther. It's different than the rest of it. Find areas that are different. That's what the smallmouth love. That's even what largemouth love. They love transitions. They love things that are different. It holds them. So when you're out there on the water, you got a lake full of docks, find the dock that's different. You got a lake full of grass, find something different in the grass. Holes in the grass, points in the grass. This lake has a ton of rock. We found something different. Soon as I went over that graphing, I saw that it was flatter. The rocks were more scattered. I saw fish on it. I knew that it was the spot. It just felt right. My forward-facing sonar wire had broke by then, so we didn't have forward-facing. We fished the whole thing blind. Absolutely hammered them. That was a great lesson learned, and it just proves the point to fish something different when everything else is the same. All right, final takeaway, guys. It felt great to finally do good in one of these tournaments. I've had a slump for a year and a half since I started fishing silted water. Definitely increased competition from what I was fishing before, but felt good to catch a decent bag, to do well in a tournament. We're sitting in 9th place of Angler of the Year, so we just got to make the top 10 to get in the final tournament champions in October. But got a tournament coming up in about 2 weeks on Sherman Reservoir in Nebraska. It's got a lot of flooded cover right now. I know the club out of North Platte just fished there, and they had a tough time. Tons of flooded cover, too many places for the fish to hide. It's a lake that the water gets drawn down, and so the population isn't there to fill up all the cover that's flooded right now. So kind of going to be a tough one, I think. Hopefully the fish are out of that post-spawn funk and are kind of moving into that more feeding mode, and we can catch a few. I think a 14 to 15 pound bag could absolutely dominate out there, but if they are biting, it might take 17 pounds. So stay tuned for that one. It's coming up on June 28th, and we'll talk about it when it gets closer. But this has been the Lake McConaughy breakdown, guys. Thanks for watching. Love doing these for you guys. I know even if you don't fish Lake McConaughy, this can apply to a lot of other places, these lessons on here. So check it out. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Tight lines, get out there and catch you a personal best.